Okay, I'm just going to get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting for the Obesity Treatment Analysis Advisory Group. I'm Billy Steele. I'm a health policy analyst here at the Office of the Insurance Commissioner. Thank you guys for attending. As a note, the advisory group meetings will be recorded and posted on OIC's website. OIC has established a web page for this advisory group where you'll be able to find the recordings and other information related to the project. Please use the raise hand function or chat to pose any questions. So to start off, we're going to do a round of introductions. I'll start it off and then I'll hand it over to the folks at Milliman and WISP, and then I'll hand it to the advisory group members. But I'm gonna say my name, my role, and my favorite road trip snack, and you guys can also add in your favorite road trip snack when I get to you. But like I said before, I'm Talika Steele. My favorite road trip snack, I would say, are gummies, anything gummy related, like gummy worms, gummy lifesavers, anything like that. And I'll hand it over to anyone here from WISP or Milliman. And again, just state your name, your role, organization, and favorite road trip snack.
I can start it out. My name is Morgan. I am with WISP, the Washington State Institute for Public Policy. We are going to be doing a analysis of the benefits, looking at academic literature about various obesity treatments. I'm sure we'll get into that more later.
Yeah.
But my role is I'm a researcher at WISP and I'm leading that team. My favorite road trip snack is also gummies, specifically like an apple gummy ring, those little snacks.
Nice. Is there anyone else here from WISP?
No, I think it's just me today.
Okay. I can pass it to Casey or Norman from Milliman.
Actually, I'm here from WISP.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, Heather. I totally didn't miss.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to join anyway, and I'm kind of like doing some other work too. But yeah, so I'm Heather Grove. I'm with WISP. I'm the benefit cost lead, and I'm probably going to be turning my monitor off because there's a lot of other stuff going on here. But favorite road trip, I don't know. I kind of go for like, you know, I know it's not as exciting as gummies, but I like grapes and things like that for road trips.
Nice. Okay, Casey from Milliman or Norman?
I'm Casey Hammer with Milliman. I am an actuarial consultant, and I am leading the actuarial analysis for this this project. And my favorite road trip snack is Taco Bell. After that, I'll pass it off to Norman.
Hi, I'm Norman. I'm an associate actuary here at Milliman. I will be helping Casey with the actuarial analysis. My favorite road trip snack would be Nerds.
Nice. I'm Team Candy, if anyone interested. Okay, so next we're going to do a similar thing for the work group members, your name, role, organization, favorite road trip snack, and also any background on issues related to, any background you have on issues related to obesity treatment. And anyone can start.
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I'm Greg Daniel, Vice President, Global Public Policy at Eli Lilly and Company. And one of our drugs on the market and a lot of our investments are in the area of obesity. My favorite road trip snack are combos. Does anybody know? They're like pretzel. Yeah. So like a little bag of pretzel with the cheese in it. I don't like these any other time. For some reason on road trips, I love them. And now my daughter does too.
I'm happy to go next. I'm Michael Boda. I'm an endocrinologist by training. I actually have a small part-time practice at Overlake, and my main job is medical director for population health at multi-care connected care. So I work with different with different medical groups on value-based agreements. I have to put my endocrinologist hat on when I talk about the road trip snacks. So I will say an apple or a banana, anything that's not an ultra-processed food, just to fit into the topic of obesity that we're gonna address here. And I have to apologize. I have a conflict at 3:40 and I will have to jump to another meeting, but I block my schedule for the future ones to be able to attend fully.
Okay, great. That's fine. And the recording will go up on the website after the meeting, so we'll be able to watch it back.
That will include the preferred snacks, right? It will all be included forever.
Yeah.
I'm happy to go next. So I'm Matt Prokop. I'm the Director of State Government Affairs for the American Diabetes Association. I cover the Northwest and North Central region for the ADA. And my favorite road trip snack is popcorn. And I have to say that, being from Nebraska, and excited to be here and a part as a work group member. The ADA advocates for comprehensive coverage for obesity treatment. So that includes intensive behavioral therapy, lifestyle treatment, FDA medications, and bariatric surgery when needed. So we're fortunate with the ADA. We have a lot of great resources and information relative to these topics, and excited to be part of this group.
Thank you.
I can go next. My name is Bindu Nayak. I am also an endocrinologist practicing in Wenatchee, Washington for many years now. So my familiarity is I prescribe diabetes medications that are also obesity medications for a long time. I also have done a lot of work in health equity for my previous medical center. And my favorite road trip snack is probably the Lemon Luna granola bars.
Interesting. Thank you.
I can go next. Hi, my name is Emily. I'm one of the pharmacists by training at Premier Blue Cross. I oversee pharmacy trend management initiatives and help manage our obesity treatments for our roughly 1 million members on the pharmacy benefit. Road trips are the only time I allow myself to have a Starbucks caramel macchiato, so I look forward to those.
Thank you.
I can go. I'm Emily Bryce, Co-Executive Director of Northwest Health Law Advocates, a nonprofit that focuses on improving access to healthcare for Washingtonians. The way that I come at this issue is working on benefits in both the commercial and public markets for some time. And over the course of that time, we have been able to remove coverage exclusions in many of the areas that previously existed, and obesity treatment is one of the remaining areas where in the individual and small group market and the Medicaid book of business there are categorical exclusions on many types of treatments, and that's an issue that we see as a problem coming up from a lot of the Washingtonians that we talk to, because they don't have a right to try to appeal when there's a categorical exclusion. I'm a lawyer by training, as you might have noticed, and my favorite road trip snack, I'm with Greg, who mentioned combos, and somebody else who mentioned other things only for road trips. I will identify Gardettos as a road trip only kind of a snack that I would never eat otherwise.
Thank you.
I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Moody. I'm Regional Lead State Government Affairs with Novo Nordisk and covering the state of Washington. Been working on health policy issues, in particular around treatment for obesity for patients. So glad to be here and part of the group. My favorite road trip snack is kind of along the same line. I like Chex Mix and probably other pretzels and things like that too, but probably not the healthiest, but good to snack on. So thanks.
Thank you.
I can go next. My name is Legina Mendez Harper. I'm a pharmacist with Prime Therapeutics. We're a pharmacy benefit manager owned by several Blues plans. And my background is obviously as a pharmacist and watching how the management of obesity and diabetes have overlapped and changed throughout the many years I've been a practitioner. And my favorite road trip snack are low sodium sunflower seeds.
Oh, nice. Healthy.
I'll go next. I'm Heather Schultz. I'm the medical director for the PEB and SEB plans that are offered through the Healthcare Authority. My clinical background is in pediatrics. In terms of obesity treatment, as you can imagine, obesity treatment is a hot topic in terms of benefit coverage for PEB and SEB members. I did, along with some of the nurses on my team, we helped provide some clinical consultation for the LEDGE report that was written on GLP-1s for UMP members in 2024. My favorite road trip snack, I am on the savory team. I usually like salty nuts of any type.
Yeah, with that segue, I'll go next. My name is John Parton. I am the Benefit Strategy and Design Section Manager for the Healthcare Authority. I led the team that wrote and produced that legislative report in 2024 for GLP-1 use. And of course, my team also looks at the variety of options for obesity management and all of the other various innovations in benefit design that we consider at the authority. My favorite road trip snack, it's not the healthiest. It's the one time that I eat it because it keeps me awake when we're doing long hours, is also Chex Mix, but it's got to be the bold flavor variety.
Got it. I see Rocky and Chio from OIC. If you guys can introduce yourselves, name, role, and also your favorite road trip snack.
Thanks, Dalika. Chio Saturn, the legislative director at OIC. I'm new to the healthcare, but more the property casualty. So I'm following Jane around and Dalika and all the other healthcare analysts. My favorite snack, and they're not good at all for me, but it's those hot and spicy beef jerky. Can eat them in like one sitting in half an hour. So I have to get small bags.
Hi, Rocky Patterson. I'm the chief actuary here at the Washington State Office of the Insurance Commissioner. I think probably wasabi almonds. Yeah, I'll go with that.
And Dalika, I'm here as well. Jane Byer, Senior Health Policy Advisor here at the OIC. And the only time I drink Diet Coke is when I'm driving so I can stay awake.
Got it. Is there anyone else who hasn't gone or hasn't introduced themselves? Nope.
And Dalika, did we have a chance to note that Erin Jajic and Carrie Glover wanted to be here today, but they are both very busy with legislative matters.
I did not know that, but thank you. Okay, so as an overview, engross substitute Senate Bill 5167, specifically Section 145, directs OIC in consultation with the Healthcare Authority to analyze the cost of including an obesity treatment benefit in commercial health plans and PEB-SEB programs. The analysis must include, but is not limited to, a utilization and cost analysis of these services, which are the intensive health, behavioral, and lifestyle treatment, metabolic and bariatric surgery, and Food Administration approved obesity medication. OIC must submit a report to the governor and legislature detailing the findings of the analysis by September 30th, 2026. The report must include the projected total annual cost of the benefit per member per month cost, as well as any state fiscal impact of implementing the benefit in the markets that are listed. And there must be both separately and in the aggregate for plan years 2028 through 2029. To assist in this effort, OIC is contracted with Milliman and the Washington State Institute for Public Policy, or WISP. Milliman will perform an actuarial analysis, and WISIP will conduct an analysis to evaluate the effect of identified weight loss treatments on obesity, weight loss, and/or diabetes, and will use WISIP's benefit cost model to monetize effect sizes. And they'll explain more of this when we get to the work plan. Given the complexity and clinical issues related to this potential benefit, OIC formed this work group, the Obesity Treatment Analysis Advisory Group, and members of the advisory group have experience and expertise that we think will help inform the work that we are doing. So everyone that's here has already introduced themselves, but this is a list of the current members of the advisory group.
And we are also anticipating that the Association of Washington Healthcare Plans will name one or two other folks so that Premera isn't the only carrier that's represented on the group. And Jalika, were we awaiting sort of names from anybody else other than an AWHP? I'm trying to remember.
I think maybe PCMA, but I see Dave Moody is here.
Right, Dave, you're representing pharma, right?
That is correct. I
Right.
am with Novo Nordisk, pharmaceutical manufacturer. We manufacture anti-obesity medication, GLP-1 treatments for
Right.
obesity.
And Lugina, you're here for PCMA, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. So I think it's our carrier reps that we're still looking for. Okay, great, thanks.
And I'll update this list to add Dave for pharma, and then when we get a whip, I'll add that too.
Great, thanks.
So now we're gonna review the work plan. I'm gonna stop sharing and share the work plan instead because I think that will be easier. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna hand it over to Casey from Milliman to go over Milliman's portions of the plan. Then I'll hand it over to Morgan, and then I'll kind of wrap it up.
Thanks. So we've gotten started here with the draft data call to the carriers. This is to understand the coverage of obesity services as it stands right now, and then we're also looking to understand how that's changed over the last couple of years since there have been changes there. So we have developed a data call to go to the carriers so that they can provide that information, so we can take that into consideration when we're projecting the changes in the coverage over time if a benefit were in place. Then what we plan to do is we're working with a team of pharmaceutical consultants and clinicians to complete an analysis plan, and they will be involved in the obesity treatment service identification, and we'll use that plan that's developed by that team to pull data from the All Payers Claim database to understand what's currently in place as of the most recent data period there, which I believe is going to be 2024. And then with assistance with that group, be able to use literature and their expertise to determine projections for going forward, understanding that there's certain areas specifically within the medication space that are rapidly changing, and so we'll need to make some assumptions there as far as how to project that. That would be beyond what we would typically do in an actuarial analysis. So from there, if you continue to scroll down, you'll see some of the individual components within the actuarial model development. There's enrollment projections and premium projections so that we can, take whatever changes that we're saying as far as like if it's going to be, $30 million, we could take that as a percentage of the total premium. So that's what that component would be used for, and what those PMPMs would be. And so we're developing those components separate from like the analysis plan, since it's outside of the data, and we won't need the information from those carriers to make those projection assumptions. So once we have all the information back from the carriers, we have the plan developed, and have pulled that data, we'll be able to model that and start doing the reporting for it. So we'll model it and report the results of that actuarial analysis in mid-June, and then the full report later on. And I guess the draft report would be in July, and then a couple weeks later the final report.
Thanks, Casey. Morgan, you can speak to what's the version.
Yeah. So right now, I kind of think of it as a four phases to this project. So right now we're in phase 1, which is project scoping and background research. So we're doing research into the various types of obesity treatments, kind of getting a lay of the land, looking at what's out there, including previously done meta-analyses, and then just internal project management work. We're working on right now finalizing the specific searches we're going to do and the databases that we'll look to for the literature of obesity treatments that are out there. So we plan to wrap this up in the next couple of weeks. And then once we have the specific searches set that we're going to do and the databases that we'll look into, we'll actually collect the literature that's out there and start screening through studies to ensure that they fall within the scope and are of high quality. So we put all of the studies that we collect through a pretty rigorous screening process. That will take the largest bucket of our time and will run probably through May. I think the plan at some point is to check in with this advisory committee when we're in that literature screening phase, to check in about the specific treatments that we're looking at. And so I think that will happen in February. Once we've done that literature screening and we have our final set of papers that fall into our scope, fall and our meet our quality standards, then we'll code those papers and run them through our pre-existing benefit cost model to monetize any benefits or the effect sizes of those various obesity treatments, looking at monetizing weight loss related to obesity treatments, diabetes, those sorts of outcomes.
Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah.
And just Morgan, quick for the folks here who are not familiar with WSIP's work on benefit cost modeling, could you just provide a bit of an explanation of that? Because I know you've been doing it for decades.
Yeah, Heather, you would probably be the best person to speak to that if you're able to right now. Otherwise, I can take a shot at it.
Oh, sure. I can give a brief synopsis. So essentially what we do is most oftentimes we do the meta-analysis work that Morgan is talking about that will allow us to estimate what the difference between a treatment and control would be on the whole for a program or a prescribed kind of treatment. And then we would enter that into our benefit cost model, which takes into account the value of that for obesity and diabetes. And we have, I can provide to the group a little bit later if you're interested in more detail on that, which allows us to estimate what the benefits of that treatment is. And as Morgan talked about, we basically usually subtract that from the cost of the program, but in this case, we're going to be doing a benefits only analysis. So Morgan, I don't know if you want to add more detail. You're welcome to. It's a little hard right now. Sorry.
I see a question from Michael.
Yeah, so quickly, there's a lot of moving pieces with the prices of those medications. You know, a lot of things announced at the federal level. We don't really know how this is going to pencil out eventually, but I'm curious if you are able to take some of that into account and be able to model this at different price points, because the main problem with those medications is not that they are not good, is the fact that we have 40% of the population eligible for to take the drug and an astronomical cost right now.
Sure.
So it will be a big difference if this will cost $100 a month, 300 or $1,000 a month.
Sure.
And then the second comment I have is this is not really a treatment for obesity alone or for diabetes. What we're addressing with those medications is really the entire cardiovascular kidney metabolic syndrome. So obesity is just portion of that.
Yeah, so to get to the first question about the various price points, we won't be assuming any price point in our analysis. We will just be monetizing the benefits. What's nice about this is it'd be really, I think, fairly easy, and Heather can correct me if I'm wrong, to go back and say, well, now let's assume that cost this much. We could rerun the model at various price points to see whether it is a net positive or negative if it's cost beneficial. But for our analysis, we will not be looking at different price points. And then to the second question about looking at like the entire cardiovascular system, we will be monetizing specific impacts, weight loss, diabetes, and I could get a detailed list of all the outcomes that we can monetize in our existing benefit cost model, but we don't have the resources to update our model in a way that it could speak to the entire system of outcomes that could be affected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
the other thing I should have mentioned earlier too is when we monetize things like obesity and diabetes, we're typically just looking at the total amount of healthcare costs for the lifetime of an individual, as well as mortality risk and labor market outcomes. So it's a very broad sort of thing, which is I think why there was interest in having WISIP do this type of analysis, is that it's maybe a little different than a more short-term sort of comparison between cost shifting or cost savings.
And with the cost
but we
of the
don't
medication.
include things like, you know, effects of cardiovascular or cardiovascular effects tied to things like obesity, diabetes, or weight gain.
I mean, with the cost, it's a matter of being able to afford this as a society and as an entity that takes risk, et cetera, because of, you know, so that's why it makes a huge difference, the price point. I mean, again, you know, $100 versus $300 versus $1,000, completely different picture. Again, not they're not good, they're great medications, but how do we afford them as a society overall? And then the benefits definitely go beyond that. So those medications, that's why they're so interested, is not because purely of the weight loss, is all the other things that come with it. So the more we can capture those two things, the better.
Tracy, do you have any thoughts on, in your actuarial analysis, about Michael's comment about variability in pricing on the drugs and different assumptions?
Yeah, generally we stress test certain assumptions, and then the ones, I mean, it'll produce a range. Now, if we create a stress test for every single assumption, like some of them, there's like interactions between assumptions and things of that nature. So we might not play with all of them and have all of them in the final report, but we would have the ones that seem to move the needle the most, if that makes sense. And then produce it as a range based on the assumptions that once you vary those, they capture a lot of that variability that we might expect to see in the final result. But if we do that for every assumption that we might use, then it would be difficult to read the analysis. You would need like a grid or something of each thing. And so we generally limit it, and that is more determined during the analysis portion of it itself. But that's certainly something that is, we're definitely aware of that and the uncertainty of what the pricing might be there.
Greg, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I do, but I have more specific questions around the benefits that you'll be looking at. But I'm wondering if this is the right time, because I think you just want to get through the project plan rather than jump into the details, but let me know.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, okay. It was just in reaction to the comment around looking at benefits only in with respect to weight loss and diabetes. And I wondered for some of the other approved indications like effects in chronic sleep apnea and some of the cardiovascular outcomes that have been studied in the trials, are you saying that you will not monetize those benefits? Or I just wanted to make sure I understood when you said only diabetes and obesity. I wondered if you are leaving those other things out, or is it subsumed within that?
We don't have the capability to do that in our current model. And so our contract does not expand beyond what we already have in the model, which is the obesity, diabetes, and weight gain. We may be able to look at some other things, as Morgan was suggesting, if it's indicated in the literature.
Yeah, but yeah, I think
Sorry.
so. What I'm asking is if you're looking in the literature on, say, for example, a patient that is using the drug for obesity, and that cohort of patients, if they experience the benefit side overall. So if you're looking at total cost of care and comparing to a patient patient group not being treated, if there were cost reductions associated with things like cardiovascular disease and sleep apnea, you would detect those in the total cost differences. So they would be in there. Are you saying that you would exclude those, or that, you know what I mean? Like if there were
I know
differences
what
in
you
total
mean,
cost
yeah.
of care? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so it's how to answer that. I guess it's really just the total cost of care. So if those things are leading to a higher cost of care for them, they would be included. Morgan will know more once her side of WISEP is doing the analysis of the literature as to things that we can capture in the meta-analysis, but we wouldn't be able to specifically call those out in the benefit cost analysis. Yeah.
Understood. That makes sense. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. Yeah, thanks.
And I did want to note that the reason that we asked WISEP to do sort of their analysis alongside of Milliman is Milliman, and Casey, happy to have you talk about what work you are able to do, integrate into your work around cost offsets, is looking at sort of on a longer term basis when we look over the lifespan, which of course is not something that actuarial analysis sort of does, right? Actuarial analysis is during the time that somebody's enrolled with a health plan, kind of a thing. So that was why we asked WISEP to come in, and we do acknowledge it might not be perfect in terms of capturing everything, but it is an attempt, because it's a report back to the legislature, and we know that there's a lot of interest in this topic. It is our attempt to sort of bring in a bigger picture to how we think about obesity coverage, obesity treatment coverage. Casey, did you have any thoughts around your cost offset kind of research and what that would look like?
Yeah, typically the cost offset research relies on publicly available literature, and it leans heavily on that. We also have some internal reports based on things that we've done for our clients and some of the actual financial impacts that we're seeing in some of these commercial groups that might not be in literature. And so using that, we'll develop assumptions for the population that we're modeling. So sometimes you'll see like a population might respond very well, but they might not be the population that we're talking about here, where it's like all of commercial. They might just be like this one group of diabetic that were on this, and so we'll have to take that large savings that they're seeing on this population. It'll be tweaked, to reflect like how many people we think have diabetes within the population that we're modeling, things of that nature. And we'll also take into consideration some of these other conditions where research allows it. In some cases, when, like in the case of GLP-1s, like it is emerging again, and like there's new research that's coming out all the time, we might, and we'll have to talk to the clinical staff on this. We've made like a broad assumption too before, where it's like, it's instead of going like, oh, because it's, it's not just for diabetics and it's not just for sleep apnea. So it's like at a certain point, it's really hard to like get down to what the cost is that's being caused by each individual condition at a certain point. So it might make sense to, hit it with an overall factor based on what we're seeing. So it really just depends. Like at this stage, I don't know what the plan is, because we're working through like which conditions we could make a specific assumption for, and if we need if it makes sense to do something more general, more broad. But that's the approach to doing those cost offsets.
Thank you for explaining that. That makes total sense to me. I did have one other question, and I'm sorry to take up the time. It was on the types of literature that you'll be considering. Some of the literature out there, and I'm thinking of groups that I'm aware of, for example, the USC Schaefer Center in California has probably done some of the most modeling using the future adult model on the benefit side, using clinical trial data going into the model and modeling out benefits. Some of that work is in a like white papers that they've published, and I know the CBO has used some of their work in doing the CBO modeling for TROA, for example. Is your criteria, and I think I'm thinking of phase 2, where you sort of like go through the literature, and will you be incorporating some of those types of research where it's in a white paper, even though it may not be a peer-reviewed publication?
Yeah, if it's a white paper from from a reputable organization, that we would not systematically exclude white papers.
Okay, thank you.
Very briefly, another way to look at this is if you have patients, for example, with existing cardiovascular disease and look at how to model for them, it could look completely different than if you look at the entire population, knowing again that 40% of the population currently in Western countries could be considered a candidate for this treatment. But it can get too complicated, I assume, to break it down too much. But at one point when you look at who should be covered, that could be taken into account too, maybe subgroups versus the entire population.
And Morgan, I suppose one way the model could handle that is if there was enough evidence just focusing on that one particular population.
Yeah, I was wondering.
But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, let's definitely talk about populations later.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments related to the Milliman analysis or the WISP analysis? Okay, so for the advisory group meeting, so obviously we're meeting today for the introductory meeting. There will be there's a potential February meeting so that WISP can kind of check in there with about their phase 2. You guys should have received a hold for February 20th. And if you haven't, just let me or Remy know. On March 27th, we'll distribute the Milliman actuarial assumptions to the advisory group, and then on April 3rd, we'll review those assumptions in meeting number 2. Then on June 19th, we'll distribute the results of the analysis, and then we'll meet on June 26th to discuss the results of the analysis. Then we'll distribute the draft report on July 17th, and then we'll meet on July 24th to go over the report and get your comments or questions and concerns. And then we'll deliver or distribute the final report on September 1st.
And one thing I would note in terms of the dates that you see here is we're really trying to key the advisory group meetings to where it would be most productive to get your input, especially clinical input, on sort of key things, right? Like the actuarial assumptions and initial actuarial analysis results. And as our WISP colleagues indicated, sort of bringing back what they found in terms of literature review and really just having an opportunity for people to react. So we've tried to schedule these meetings around deliverables where your input we think would be of greatest value.
Any questions or comments about this?
I would just say I do appreciate how you've built in specific rows for distributing the materials and then a week later having the advisory group, just because I know it will take some time to go through and to make those advisory group calls as helpful as possible. Giving us that time to review it ahead of time is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, just trying to share the PowerPoint again. Okay, so if there are no questions about like the dates, we tried to, like Jane mentioned, we tried to plan the meetings around the deliverables so that's as productive as possible. Are we good with the amount of meetings? Do we think that we would need any additional meetings beyond what we have so far?
I think it's hard to know until you get into it.
Right.
For now, it seems reasonable.
Thank you.
And I'll add, I agree. I think it sounds reasonable, but we may get to the point where we're reviewing the draft report and need some additional discussion. And it sounds like there's room to work that in if needed.
Yeah. And then beyond the materials that we'll be sending out, like the actual analysis and the draft report and the WISP memo, are there any other materials that you think we'll need to go over in the meetings? Yeah, Emily.
I was thinking a little bit about kind of baseline coverage where we are, and I think that probably will be answered by the carrier data call, but I don't know if there are any other pieces to that that would be useful, like a review of the existing benefit designs in relevant markets, to the extent that they are articulated. So for example, for individual small group, PEPSEB. So that might just be a kind of contextual piece that maybe you've already planned to work in.
Stacey, would your results of the carrier data call be sort of built into the draft actuarial assumptions? And would that be an opportunity to talk about that when the working group meets about that?
I can think about that. I mean, we'll have the data call results. Because these are public meetings, they'll have to all go through the high visibility process within the company. And so at that point, we should have the data call results, which would be, you know, in the report as it is. And so, you know, we could put that section out as long as the, you know, the carriers are on time, I guess. Like that's really where I'm concerned, because once things are going to be discussed in the public sphere, we need to make sure that you know, there's an internal comment period on anything that we release. So so I can't promise it, I guess, because it really depends on the carriers and them sticking to the timeline. But I think
That makes sense.
I think so. I don't think
I'm
it'll be
kind of
followed.
thinking of like the layers. So for example, in the individual and small group market.
Yes, because it really depends on the carriers and them sticking to the timeline. But I think
That makes sense.
I think so. I don't think
I'm
it'll be
kind of
followed.
thinking of like the layers. So for example, in the individual and small group market, right? Like the essential health benefits requires certain kinds of treatment, but not obesity treatment, has a categorical for exclusion for obesity treatment. And I think there's some nuance to how you pull those pieces apart that we're going to see in the carrier data call, right? This is good you're doing the carrier data call. And I imagine the same thing is similar, for example, for PEPSEB, and we probably don't have any readily available data for large group. So I'm just kind of thinking through, I expect there'll be kind of a messy landscape for the baseline, and it might be helpful to find a way to surface some of that discussion as we go throughout the process, but would defer to you on the timing and way of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we should be able to, as we'll get the results for that at the end of February. And so as long as that process is on time, because in the past they've asked for additional time. And so like that's where with the scheduling of our next meeting and making sure that, you know, our summary of what those results are is able to go through our review process before that meeting. Like that's, I guess, what that's contingent on. But yeah, we do synthesize that information and then summarize it in the report. It's just a matter of it being ready in time for that assumptions call.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So if we have some cost offset research through publications and journals, can we distribute that to you? And if so, when is the timeline around that?
I guess distribute it to the work group.
Like you talked about collecting like research and literature, and so like I know we're working on some publications and journals on this topic. So I just wondered if we have that data and research, if we can submit that, and if so, kind of the timing and process for that.
So to our to WISIP, to the WISIP folks, and to Casey. We're happy to get that information and share it back with you. And then I know for the WISIP folks, you're going to run it through your system for evaluating the quality of the evidence. Casey, it sounds like you do some of that as well. But would you be amenable to having us get to you any information that's submitted by the advisory group members?
Yes, please. Yeah, and our literature review is underway, so we're anticipating completing that in about a month. So the sooner the better on that, and we welcome it. As long as I would say, these are we're looking for peer-reviewed reports, not like sometimes we get things from I'm blanking on the term, but groups that are trying to push their agenda, I guess, and so it's like more of like I feel that this is how things are going, and an anecdotal experience, and like and that type of thing we don't rely on. But if you have peer-reviewed journal articles or white papers from trusted sources, then yeah, we will take that into consideration.
And who should we send those to?
Why don't you send them to Dalika, and then we can get them to Megan and Casey. Acknowledging that each of those organizations does have policies around grading the quality of the evidence that they rely on in drawing any conclusions.
Yeah, hi, Morgan from WISIP. I was going to add, we're happy to read anything. I can't guarantee that it would be included, and we have a really systematic process both for reviewing for quality, but also for screening and collecting our papers to make sure that what we're finding and everything would be replicable by another research group. So I can't guarantee that anything that gets like personally sent to us from members of the advisory group would be included in that, but we're happy to read it and
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's understandable. Would we eventually know which studies you did include versus decide
Yes.
not to? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so if there are no more questions, I can wrap the meeting and give you guys about 30 minutes back. Like I mentioned earlier, a recording of the meeting along with this PowerPoint and the agenda will be posted to the webpage for this advisory group. Thank you all for attending, and I look forward to seeing you at our next meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks much.